30. So everything we talked about, this is updated from last time, but what this look like.
Grant, this was on the internet, wasn't it?
Maybe in the email,
Yeah.
possibly. Right. I thought we'd just go through the draft to make sure it's got everything in it we talked about previously.
The thing we could do. Post some stuff at the bottom. That I thought we had discussed and was put into the draft. Was there were no ground mounted solar energy systems would be allowed in the town limits of Culver for safety reasons and kids and
We have to be careful on, when you say no ground mounted, what do you mean? Solar systems, we have different types of solar systems, so what do you mean?
well, the panels, no. And
What size panels?
any size.
So what about the little lights we buy at Walmart? Those are solar. The ornamental lights are called micro in our definitions.
Can see it.
Well, do we want to go through this? Do we want to go through this and discuss that? So I've got your note, no, okay, no ground mounted in town limits, but we have to define what that means. No,
Ground mounted.
no micro scale, no large, small scale, medium scale, large scale.
How big is the panel you are envisioning when you're saying a ground mounted solar power?
Any size.
That's where we're kind of getting in the weeds about that, is if it's a little light that's on a path, it's a stake in the ground. So even though the panel is only that big, it's still a ground mounted solar panel.
Yeah. Any ground mounted solar panel,
So-
any size.
So we can't do that. We can't say none.
You can't say that I can't. Solar light. At the foot of my stairs, so I don't trip going up the steps.
Talking about an energy system, you know.
Well, there are energy systems, so that's why we have to be specific.
It's the minimum size we got listed here in the size.
Micro scale and small, micro scale solar energy system that occupies less than 120 square feet of panel area.
We just,
Standalone systems are exempt, such as flagpoles, pole lights, so those would be exempt. So those lights that we talked about, it's written in here, it's kind of want to go over this line by line.
talking about a micro system, you're talking 120 square feet is what, 10 by 12?
Mhm.
I wouldn't want one of those in my neighbor's yard facing my house. Would you? And, you know,
It depends. I can't answer that because I don't know how big my neighbor's, what size neighbor's yard you're talking about. So I want just to back up, and I have no problem if that's what everybody wants to put in here, but you have to remember also that I wanted to go through this line by line, but I'll jump ahead and say part of our rewriting our zoning ordinances is all the solar systems have to go through the BZA. And a medium and large scale have to also go through the TRC.
it's kids running around. Getting in, you know, shocked by those things or
I,
glare going over into your neighbor's yard. and
if we go by line, we cover glare in this ordinance. So I suggest we just go through it line by line and then go back to those areas, like you said, the ground mounted. But glare's already covered in here in a couple spots.
Start at the beginning.
I think I'm not objected to any of it. I'm just saying we should probably go through this.
Yeah, so we might be able to see if we get in here, if it's already addressed what you're interested in, Chester. But we'll just go through it and see if what you're interested in, your particular interpretation of it is actually addressed. So we'll just go through it and then we'll come back.
And add the comments to it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's for anybody that wants to have comments.
No,
We got
yeah, because we worked on it and we want to keep working on it.
work session.
That's all this is. It's a work session. Let's have an extra copy. Well, this has changed a little bit from last time. It's been updated from the last meeting. I'll just go through it. It shouldn't take long to go through this. We'll start with the intent. Given the potential impact on the environmental health and safety and welfare of those living in Culver zoning districts, the town of Culver finds that it is in the public interest to regulate the establishment and operation of solar energy systems, SES, while accommodating the energy options of residences and businesses. Also, to avoid potential damage to adjacent properties from solar energy systems, SES failures through structural standards and setback requirements. The authority, the building commissioner is vested with authority to review, approve, and disapprove applications for the solar energy system, including a sketch, preliminary plans, and final plans. What that means is every time somebody files an application, to go to the BZA Plan Commission, I have to review all those.
It'll go through all of
The
them.
first application goes through me to make sure all the information's in there.
So the technical review committee will.
That's separate, but we'll get to that. Public purpose, regulations of the city's SES facilities and exercise of valid police power delegated by the state of Indiana. The developer has the duty of compliance with reasonable conditions laid down by the Culver Plan Commission. Types and size of energy solar systems, roof mounted, a solar energy system including but not limited to the panels and mounting system that is fixed, set, or placed on the roof of a primary or accessory structure. Ground mounted, a solar energy system that is self-supporting and set into or on the ground. So we have some types. Sizes of solar energy systems. Micro scale and small scale solar energy systems shall be measured by total surface area of the panels. And this is referenced below in panel square feet. Medium scale, large scale, and industrial scale solar energy systems shall be measured by the total land area and is referenced below in total land area square feet. So micro scale solar energy system, a solar energy system that occupies less than 120 square feet of panel area. Standalone systems are exempt, such as flagpole lights, singular solar lights, etc., like we talked about sidewalk lights. Small scale solar energy systems, a solar energy system that occupies 120 square feet of panel area to 1,750 square feet. A medium is a solar energy system that's more than 1,750, but no more than 43,560 square feet, which is an acre. Large scale energy system, a solar energy system that occupies more than 43,560 square feet of land area, but less than 435,600, which is less than a total of 10 acres. Industrial solar energy system is defined as a solar energy system that occupies more than 43,600 square feet of land area, or 10 acres. Permitting. Industrial solar energy systems are not permitted in the town of Culver zoning districts. Large-scale solar energy systems are permitted exclusively in suburban, industrial, and agricultural zoning districts by special use permit. All these are going to be, have to go through, and our new ordinances come out, everything goes through the BZA. Site plan. A technical review committee site plan approval is required for medium scale and large scale solar energy systems prior to building permit approval. So it's going to have to go through, this says that the medium scale and large scale have to go to the TRC. They're also going to have to go to the BZA.
Does anything? Micro, small scale.
It's not in here. It can be.
Should be,
So you want small scale on here?
yeah.
Everybody agree with that?
Scale.
Any comments? I'm listening to anybody who wants to comment.
All sides, I think.
I guess the other thing is when it becomes small enough, you need to follow the other guidelines that we're going to go into of property lines, physical features, including roads and stuff. Is it just more of, so they have their set?
I think we should probably go through this. Yeah, we're going to answer some of your questions coming up here. Okay, so under G, number 1 for the site plan. Property lines and physical features, including roads. This all have to be in the site plan. Proposed changes to the landscape of the site, grading, vegetation clearing, planning, exterior lighting, vegetation structures. 3 drawings of the system showing the proposed layout, distance between the collector and property lines. So all the details, including the finished height. Site plan has to have name and address of property owners and equipment installers. And 5, zoning district designation for the parcels of land comprising the project site. They're gonna have to list what zoning district they're in. Documentation that the applicant has submitted notification to the utility company of the applicant's intent to install an interconnected customer-owned generator. Off-grid systems are exempt from this requirement. Where there are environmentally sensitive features on the site or the site plan is expected to be complex, or there are other important planning applications, this says that we can hire a engineer, a professional at the developer's expense if it gets too complicated, which is a common thing to do. H, general approval standards, setbacks. Ground mounted micro scale and small scale in all districts shall be installed in either the side yard or rear yard and are considered accessory structures. So this is saying they still have to follow the same setbacks as accessory structures.
I got
Okay, this is the time.
talking.
So I think that's your point. What's everybody think?
Ground mounted storage systems and town limit. Okay, that would be a real problem.
If you have if you have a piece of property that's large enough to contain it, reasonable setbacks, I don't see a problem with having that.
I don't either. I think, what would your reason not to put them on the ground?
Well,
Again, it's going through remember, BZA is gonna vet all this also. And some of these TRC.
note here is the with this reduced property values of existing structures, the neighbors, for example, and, you got kids running around in the yards. Can they get shocked or hurt by that thing? The glare from it, could
No.
that start a fire?
We addressed the glare in 2 different parts in this coming up. So it says no glare in here.
Well, glare for sight is one thing, glare for fire starting is something different.
I'm not sure what the definition, the difference of those is. I doubt that they would have enough glare to combust something.
At this size, they're expensive. So the person putting it in is not going to want to make it vulnerable at all to kids being able to run through, or even the Amazon guy brushing by it or anything. I would hope people would protect it.
I would think you would put a fence around it, like you do a swimming pool.
Yeah, it's the same thing if you decide, number one, if I'm right, you have 75-foot setbacks with
For a large scale.
large scale. When you say large scale, are you talking about a residential property?
So it could be if it's 10 acres or more.
Here's what I'm saying, so, okay. And the biggest thing is your setbacks. As for the effect on your neighbor. How, and then the bottom line to me is if you got a big enough lot. When you're saying 75-foot setbacks, you're saying,
For large scale. The small and medium scale, I know small, we'll get into this as we go, but the small scale is going to be the regular setbacks, is what it says
I
here.
guess my question is setbacks from a building.
25 feet from front. Depends on the lot size. It's 10 feet from the side yards and 10 or 25 feet from the rear yard. We're not, so commercial's not even in this discussion. Because we said at the beginning, we saying we're not going to allow that.
You just like if it's a swimming pool, you say you gotta put a fence around the swimming pool, and it's a matter, someone wants to put solar and they have the space to do it. And wants to put it in, then they probably gotta, I would think they're gonna want, but I'd almost think the insurance would say you've gotta have certain things.
Having seen solar panels out, I'm not sure there's any more risk of a kid running into those than having a swing set in your yard. I just don't see the difference in the risk of that if you run into something.
My cousin has solar panels in there. 2 acres. It's near their house. And, you know, their dogs don't go run into it. Their goats don't run into it. The llamas don't run into it.
Sally, how high off the ground are they?
They're what you call standard height. You know, they're,
You can't walk under it.
no, you can't walk under them. You know, unless you're in a flood zone, you aren't gonna put them up on poles.
You still want to be able to like weed whip and, but you might not
Right.
be able to mow under it.
And mow under it or.
Yeah. And most of the structures we're talking about are gonna take about the same footprint as like a yard barn or a pool, a small pool or something like
Yeah.
that. That's about the square area they're gonna inhabit, and they'd still have to conform to the 25-foot setbacks in that backyard and the side yard. So if they have the room to put a yard barn, they got a room to put a solar panel, if they don't have trees. Cause that would be foolish.
And I'm assuming, I'm just saying, and that's gonna be a fact, I decide I wanna do an improvement on my lot. And then I don't know if then does that mean that I'm gonna, as you said, you're gonna go before the BCA? And if I'm gonna do something that's normal now, it's like I ask my neighbors and say, do you mind if I do this? That'll probably be the same process.
Well, it will be saying setbacks, and also keep in mind it's considered in here, it's, as we get into this, it says it's considered an accessory structure. So there's limits on accessory structures on properties also. So for instance, in some situations, somebody that has a yard barn on their property already has an accessory structure and they're not allowed another one, so they could put it in. Or if they put solar panels in, they couldn't put a yard barn in.
Put them on the roof, it's a moot point.
Exactly, and it says that in here too, but yeah. We'll come back to that point. The small, medium, ground mounted SES may be located no closer than the setback for their zoning district. Large scale SES have a 75-foot setback from the property line. Remember, large scale goes to a maximum of 10 acres. Medium and large scale SES are allowed in suburban, agriculture, and industrial zoning districts only. Height. And some of this is covered in state statute, but height, roof mounted solar energy systems may exceed the maximum building height, provided the SES does not exceed 5 feet in height above the roof line in residential districts and 10 feet above the roof line in all other districts. No aspect of the ground mounted solar energy system shall exceed 15 feet in height as measured from grade at the base of the structure to its highest point. Then lot coverage. The area covered by ground-mounted solar energy systems measured by a rectangular encompassing the various system components where the ground beneath is permeable or pervious shall not be included in calculations for impervious coverage. The applicant shall plant a pollinator species. The Michiana Area Council of Governments requirements for pollinator species for solar energy systems shall be referenced. The site shall be planted and maintained to be free of all invasive species as listed by the Indiana Invasive Species Council.
Want to designate that by size too, because if you're talking about wanting smaller ones, it's in somebody's yard, more than likely, like Sally was saying, you're gonna do grass and just mow under it, not put pollinators in the little patch in your yard.
Yeah. I'd be more interested in knowing.
I agree.
whether, You know,
What sizes do we want to do that with? Medium and large? Small, medium, large? I mean, medium and large?
Well, I mean, that comes to the other question of, what is it called? Is it called volticulture? Where people are toying with the idea of, letting grazing animals graze underneath solar panels in certain areas.
Oh, agrovoltaics.
That's it. And so do we want to get into it or just say that it's any plant?
Well, we've got this maintained because the Michiana Area Council of Governments has a listing of that already.
Mhm.
So I don't want to reinvent a wheel or anything here. This is already referenced somewhere.
Okay,
Somebody
so-
can go to.
So small scale would be grass and then medium and large would be pollinators.
I'm good with medium, large if everybody else is.
They could always get a variance if they want. Raising animals. Some BZA.
Yeah, remember, we're limited where some of these sizes can be located also. So in some cases, it could be suburban. Somebody could just go ahead and put some sheep underneath them or llamas or whatever it
Yeah.
may be.
never likes to munch.
No more.
So for drainage, for large and medium scale solar energy systems, we're simply referencing our zoning as both what floodplain regulations call for, which is controlled by FEMA, and then the state, and of course, our erosion control standards as well. It's a reference point in here. It's somewhat redundant, but it's worth putting in here. Security at large scale solar energy systems. The large scale solar energy facility shall have a perimeter security fence at least 6 feet in height. Be installed outside of the facility to include the 75-foot buffer. I'm not sure about this language. It can be at the property, adjacent to the property line.
75-foot setback. Explain that. 75 foot from where?
From the property line.
From the property line?
Mhm.
And then that, and what would be there then? At the 75 feet would be the, green screen? That we start that, or that's where you put the fence?
That's, you put the fence in the 75 foot between you're standing at the road and the first panel corner you're gonna see.
Okay,
That's where the fence is going to go in that 75 feet.
and then how about the green screening?
That's going to go-
Or at the property?
So here, what the thought is here, and it's probably not clear enough, is you can put the fence along the edge of your property like you can anywhere else. You gotta remember, this is limited in industrial, agricultural, commercial, I believe. So put the fence at the property line, and then inside that fence, as long as there's a buffer, so we don't have to look at it. I don't know if anybody else care. I don't care which side of the fence the buffer's on, as long as it's there. I don't know if that matters.
So to say, if you're really worried about looking at it, the buffer being on the outside of the fence is cheaper for the developer and is going to hide the fence too, so it'll just look like green space. But I don't know that you need to require that if they don't want them in their buffer either. If they want to put it on the outside, I don't know that you need to require it. Just don't say it has to be on the property line.
And since they can't go over 10 acres. They may have 20 acres and have plenty of room to put it out beyond that. And the reason for the 10 acres is having talked to some, in particular, one farmer, but some people out in the country, they've put in solar systems for themselves. They're not hooked up to the grid. They've got solar systems. In this case, he had them on top of his building, but he was powering a farming operation with this. And he had his own battery energy storage unit. It's not going into the grid. I can't see denying somebody that. I mean, it's maybe a farm or maybe even a business, but denying them that energy if they want to make that expense into it, as long as we don't put it into the grid, because it says it in here.
There again, my cousin's far enough off the grid that they're out of power if they don't make their own, for a week or two at a time. If the lines get cut, because they're so remote, they don't care to fix them.
So that's
what he's doing.
that's been the thought behind this all along, is a maximum of 10 acres to allow a business, which could be a farm, or it could be a industry or commercial business that has the room to be able to generate their own power. And if they believe that buying these and they can have their own justification for cost, I don't know. We're not covering an entire farm field with them or anything like that. And it's not, and we talk about this in here later, that it's not putting it into the energy grid.
Is that a requirement saying that it cannot connect to the grid?
It is.
I know I'm getting ahead of you, and you said we'll get to that, so.
Yeah, it is. So
I guess, because that was brought up in such a way, and you were talking about it being a little bit muddled, are you now saying that if the cabinet factory wanted to take its farm ground and turn it into solar panels and use its own energy, it still has to abide by the fencing and everything? Okay. It was just how it got brought up right now when we're talking about fencing. I didn't know if it was only if you're gonna sell the electric, you gotta fence it and put the green in and everything like that.
you can't go over 10 acres and you have to have 75 feet setback from your property line.
Regardless if the electricity being generated goes on the grid or not.
No, in here we say we don't want it to go on the grid. It's just for your business use.
Oh, okay. So
There's definition. It gets fuzzy and then we might get into the weeds a little bit, but there's difference between selling the energy you generate back to NIPSCO from your house into the local system versus going into the grid.
Mhm.
There's a difference in that. Those are two different things.
They need a definition someplace in here to explain that, if you don't have it later.
I would say that would be true, because if you had 10 acres of solar panels, I think would be selling some of it back to the,
But there's people put these on the roof that do that.
Yeah.
They get up with extra and they get to make, they don't get much anymore, but they get some money back. So.
And it also, I guess it's just in the weeds about it, because if you have a lot of vacant homes that, if they're sitting there all winter, can be turning you a profit because you're selling all the energy being generated off of.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money they get for that anymore. They've reduced that down over the last several years. What NIPSCO pays, I can't give you an exact number, but it's not a lot. It's not worth putting in just to sell back to NIPSCO because you're gonna lose money. A lot.
Steve, are you saying that any solar array within the town limits is prohibited from selling power back to?
To the grid. With our zoning districts.
Why?
You can sell it back to the local utility. You can't put it in the grid. They're two different
I
things.
guess, yeah,
The grid doesn't even stay here. The energy and the solar farms that are industrial solar fields that are gonna go up. Not far from here are, that's not gonna power anybody's houses around here. That's going somewhere
He's
else.
just saying it would be NIPSCO.
It would go back to our
It's
utility,
like
your
that.
utility
Yeah,
provider.
they can then get it to the grid. For the middleman, so to go to NIPSCO or REMC would be all right.
I, you know, I'm done.
Kind of.
Sure. My favorite saying who they can sell it to and who they can, if it's a, you know, the structure is allowed.
Okay.
And that's just my.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the downside. You know, is it my-
There isn't gonna be anybody that's gonna hook up a 10-acre system to the grid.
Because you're going to have to go through
They're gonna have,
MISO or PJM, the grid operators who are gonna say, you're a fleet, go away.
Well,
We
wouldn't,
want the big guys.
wouldn't NIPSCO sort of be a broker for that and say, hey, got
no,
some decent,
two different entities.
wouldn't pass it on?
They're two different entities. They're not together.
NIPSCO has their own power purchase agreement with MISO, in our case, it's PJM for east of here. So, yeah, the grid is just a whole different animal. It is big and it is regional.
I guess
NIPSCO
what I'm saying is that who are we to decide who they can sell it to?
Well,
If nobody's
they would
willing
only
to
have
buy
one
it,
choice.
if nobody's willing to buy it, then
Well,
that takes
They'd
money
have to
off.
sell it through NIPSCO to get to the grid.
Correct.
You should allow them to, they want to sell what they don't use.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, it's,
Let them try.
I could raise rocks, if nobody's gonna buy them, then I've just chosen a poor job.
I think that's a great point. So,
You know, why regulate something that doesn't need regulating?
I think it's a great point. Thanks. Yep. So when we get to that, I've got some notes for that though. So it's good. It's good to get this cleared up. And then, talks about security fence. It has to be maintained in good condition. And then for large scale, it talks specifically about the vegetative buffer, 4-season screen maintained around the circumference areas it allows in areas where there's not at least 50 feet of native timber, because if they got that, that's nice to have the native stuff there. It has to be a double row of conifer trees.
Is just going back to that 50 foot of native timber surrounding property owners. If you butt up to a neighbor and the neighbor's got the 50 foot, it's gotta be under the property owner.
You have to have the buffer, and
You have to have the buffer.
your neighbor doesn't buffer it for you.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
It's a good question.
Cause I'm thinking of properties that people have and you wouldn't wanna build naturally close to 50 or tall trees, I would imagine, but.
Oh,
I guess it's a very weird thing to say, put a vegetative fence up facing your neighbor's woods. That's all.
yeah, but you don't know if your neighbor wants to chop down their woods.
So no vegetative fence.
You can't control your neighbor. It's only what you can control on your property.
No vegetative fence would be required in between homes within the district. Talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It would be.
Yeah.
Even for the small 120 square.
No, this is for a large scale. So what's your point? What are you asking?
Any kind of screening that is required between neighboring homes and the solar panels that people want to put in their yard.
For what?
Large scale is an acre, Chester.
Hmm?
Large scale is an acre of
Yeah,
solar.
it's an
That's,
acre.
that's not gonna happen anywhere in town.
Well,
There's no place possible to do that.
Would not be
Yeah,
beneficial.
I know that. I'm talking about the solar panels, yeah. You want to put in a medium size or a small scale. It could be, offensive to the neighbor. There should be some kind of screening there required.
You're not requiring them to put vegetative screening around the one on their roof, and that could be offensive to your neighbor as well. So, I don't see the point in doing it if you've got a 10 by 12 or a 6 by 6 in your backyard.
Okay, I'll move on with this. So after that, we also require, and it's in our ordinances, but it's reinforced here, that a Knox key box storage system is there for the Culver Union Township Fire Department. As well as on a large scale, there's gonna have to be at least 12 foot wide with a minimum height of 14 feet clearance for a fire truck to get through if they have to. That's per the fire department's request. Medium and large scale exterior lighting shall be limited to that required for safety and operational purposes, shall be shielded and downward facing, and will not produce glare across lot lines onto properties not associated with the project and minimized for the same property residences. Glare. The applicant shall place all solar panels in a manner that eliminates any solar glare onto the lake, nearby properties, or roadways. Is that one okay? Good with that? Okay. I know you were questioning about the glare, and it's definitely covered.
What is considered a nearby roadway?
So I think we get into the weeds. I think it's gonna be subjective.
The reason I ask is that some houses naturally just their windows at a certain time of the day cause a reflection that'll go right through in between neighbors' houses and hit people as they're driving down the road. And I don't want people being like, that's a solar panel glare. Kind of stuff. And that's why I'm asking.
So those cases, I guess I would, if somebody has a complaint, I'd have to go out and see if they're actually causing the glare or if it's coming off somebody's window.
Okay,
That would be the only answer I could think of for it.
yeah,
No, it's a good, I get the point.
yeah, because it happens.
On safety, All ground mounted electrical control equipment shall be labeled and secured to prevent unauthorized access. Medium and large, the property operation and maintenance plans shall be submitted to the building commissioner with a special use application. Signage on the large scale fencing at all entrances will display the facility name, address, and emergency contact information. D, all electric solar energy system components must have UL or equivalent listing and be compliant with NFPA 70E, which is the National Electric Code, federal and Indiana state building codes. Power and communication lines running between banks of solar panels to nearby electrical substations or interconnections with buildings shall be buried underground. Exceptions may be granted by the building commissioner where shallow bedrock, water courses, or other elements of natural landscape interfere with the ability to bury the lines, or distance makes undergrounding infeasible at the discretion of the building commissioner. The large-scale SES applicant shall provide training before, during, and after. I've changed this language to not before, but during and after, or wanted to. After construction, for all emergency services and Culver Union Township emergency personnel, the applicant shall provide a set of procedures and protocols for managing risk of fire and for responding in the event of an emergency at the facility. And they're also going to have to conduct annual training for the Culver Union Township emergency personnel at their facility. Safety data sheets will be provided to the building commissioner and Culver Fire Chief for all chemicals prior to being brought on medium and large scale sites. Solar energy facilities shall not be used to display advertising or any type including banners, streamers, reflectors. However, notices, warnings, and identification information required by law will be displayed.
What exactly is the regular training for the township emergency personnel and operation of the facility on an annual basis? Like,
So when it comes to solar systems and battery energy storage systems, fire department does get specialized training on that. And Culver's been through that, but the owners also needs to be able to provide that training on site specific area.
what exactly would that entail? Just,
You have to talk to firefighters about that.
okay. Always look at her. That's why I'm asking is if there's not an emergency outside of letting them use the knockbox, opening the gate, driving through the entire facility with their vehicles and unloading hoses and loading it back up.
There could be a host of different types of emergencies that it would take somebody, an expert in that field to talk about, and that's not me.
Steve, wouldn't the local emergency services be educated in that field already? Instead of having,
Most are.
because if you have 3, 4 of these solar arrays somewhere, does every single owner have to?
As I said, Culver has had their training in this already,
Right.
but they still have the site-specific training from the owners. There's no such thing as too much training for when it comes to the safety stuff,
And
not my opinion.
this would be on an annual basis?
Yes.
Are there any other facilities or commercial entities in town of Culver that does similar to this? Like I know they do like water.
I could just say that would be a question for the fire department. I can't answer that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, they're good questions. They're good questions at all. Okay, since we're bumping up against, we got like 15 minutes for bottom of the hour in the plan commission meeting. Yep. Probably. So for now, I'd just like, we can end here and take off from there. I'll make notes and I'll just recap what I've got to start with. We'll have to consider no ground mounted in those areas. Site plan. To add small and medium. And then lot coverage, medium and large. And then I've got, when we talk about security, I'll clarify that language in there from, make it sure it's clear from the property line. And then also fencing can go adjacent to the property line. So that's cleared up.
Okay.
buffer on property next to neighbors, we'll have to look at that. I'll look into that and see what other places are doing. That's what the large scale is based on. A lot of other ordinances I've read, grid definition versus local. We didn't get to that part, but maybe just take out the grid part. As Sally said, doesn't matter. And that's pretty much the notes I have that I can make those changes to. And then if you want to look at the rest of this, I'll make those changes. Well, probably should just take off where we left off at the next meeting. And then as I make all these changes, then we'll start over again to look through it with the changes in it.
When is your next meeting?
It's going to be next month, right before the planning commission meeting again.
15th, I believe. Cause that's when my new surgery is.
Okay. Probably October 15th. Does anybody can anybody start earlier than 5:30? So we have more time? We're not pressed for time yet, so y'all know. If this is more convenient, then we can do this. Or if another day or time or something, just if everybody agrees, I'm okay with it.
I like going through and having these little discussions as we go. Get some more information, more input.
There's a lot of good points put in there, and we didn't get into the second half of this,
Right.
where there's still more information. Okay, anybody have anything to add? I'll just send you a notice then next month, we'll post it, publish it, and send you all an email that we're gonna meet before the planning commission again. We're meeting before the planning commission. Thank you.